Missing video archives this week? The good news is you don't have to. You can hear the rest of this conversation and Video Archives After Show by subscribing to the Video Archives Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/video archives to subscribe today.
Would you say this is like the equivalent to like the Carpenter remake of The Thing being closer to Who's That Knocking at My Door than the Hawks production? They really went back to the source material?
Not in exactly the same way. I think the idea in the case of The Thing is they kind of ignore the source material and just take the few elements that they want and made their own 50s sci-fi movie in the process. They still tell the story of The Big Sleep and the Howard Hawks version. It's similar to The Count of Monte Cristo. I'll give a long...
Yeah, go for it.
And we'll see if it works, okay?
Yeah.
In my opinion, hands down, the best version of The Count of Monte Cristo is the 1934 Robert Donay version, directed by Roland V. Lee. Every other version of The Count of Monte Cristo has all set out to be the definitive version of The Count of Monte Cristo. But that was not the case with the 34 version. Edward Small, the producer, and Roland V. Lee, the director, they didn't give a fuck about honoring the Alexander Dumas novel to the highest extent. They wanted to take the material and turn it into an exciting movie. And it ends up being the most exciting movie because all the tropes that are usually kind of a drag on all the other versions, they get through as fast as they can because they want to get to the revenge part. All right, that's what they want to do. And it's the best. All the other versions, the bigger the period design, the bigger the production design, the bigger the costume design, the more they shot on location, just draws it out and makes it not as interesting as the 34 version that you get. That they turned it into a movie. And the same thing with the Hawks' Big Sleep. He's less enamored with the Raymond Chandler novel, and he's more enamored with the idea of coming up with good scenes for Bogart and Bacall.
He's making a movie.
Yeah, to expand on the dynamic he created with To Have and To Have Not. In this case of The Big Sleep, Robert Mitchum has just played Philip Marlowe earlier in Farewell, My Lovely, so he's kind of established in the character. And he's literally remaking one of the most beloved Hollywood classic movies of all time, where it's not only beloved as a movie on its own amongst film buffs, but it's also one of the movies of that time period that was actually really dug by college students, because it would get shown a lot at most college had either a revival cinema close to them, or they would turn the Union Hall into a movie screening thing, and they would show old movies. The Big Sleep was one of the more popular ones with younger people because they're not expecting The Big Sleep to be as progressive and sexy as it is. And it's one of those weird things when you watch certain old movies with younger people, then all of a sudden they start laughing, not because they're laughing at the movie, but they can't believe that they're talking about sex. They can't believe that a sex metaphor is so blatantly out there in a movie during the production code, but they get away with it. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that old movies could talk like this. And The Big Sleep is one of the biggest examples of that. And so there's this real hipness to The Big Sleep.
Everything is innuendo.
Everything is innuendo, but it's like,
innuendo by an innuendo master.
No, and it goes past innuendo because there's a section, one of the best sections in the movie, there's competing for best sections of the original film, is there's a scene where Philip Marlowe, he wants to keep the rare bookstore under surveillance, so he goes to another rare bookstore that's across the street, and there he meets Dorothy Malone, who's there, and she's this really hot chick, and they sit down and talk, and then they really start getting along, and then they go in the back. And then an hour later, Bogart emerges, says goodbye, and says maybe they'll get together again. And it's obvious he fucked her. You know, he had to stay out there. He had to wait for the guy, Geiger, to leave. Mm-hmm. All right. And so he
just spends some time.
So he spent some time fucking the chick at the...
It's how Marlowe spends time.
Fucking the hot girl with the horn-rimmed glasses, the bookworm. All right. And then goes out and follows the guy. And it kind of blows everybody's mind when you watch it.
People just can't believe how contemporary the...
Yeah. And the two writers of the script are William Faulkner and Lee Brackett.
Oh, wow.
And the way they...
I mean, I know Faulkner, but I actually don't know Lee Brackett.
She wrote Empire Strikes Back.
She wrote Empire Strikes Back?
She was a pulp novelist writer. She wrote Empire Strikes Back. She wrote the adaptation of The Long Goodbye. And she died writing The Empire Strikes Back. That's how Kasdan got into it. Kasdan had to finish it. And it was funny because when she got hired, Hawks hired her and she goes, okay, you'll be writing the script with William Faulkner. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting in a room working with like one of the great American writers of all time. What ended up happening is Faulkner gave her the book, gave her Raymond Chandler's book and said, okay, so here's the deal. I'll do the odd chapters, you do the even chapters.
That's funny.
And that's exactly how they did it.
You know what? Neil Gaiman and I wrote something that way. We did Black Hole that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually a very interesting, fun way to write.
Yeah. No, it sounds like
it almost becomes like a challenge. Like
it does.
You start reading the other person's thing. It's like, whoa, not only does that inform what I have to do next, but I've got to like up my game or whatever. It becomes a sparring match,
and I can imagine doing it with William Faulkner would be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause he makes you do a shot in between every.
Yeah.